Hey guys, today we're going to read a book called Nobody Hugs a Cactus. I think this might be one of my very favorite books ever. When I was reading through this book, I was thinking about how much my students would love it, and it's pretty awesome. I think you're going to like it a lot. Nobody Hugs a Cactus by Carter Goodrich. My friend Sarah bought this book for our classroom. Thank you, Sarah. I want to talk today a little bit about theme. So, this book has a very strong theme. The theme of a book is the life lesson or the message that the author wants us to understand when we read the book. So, we have our little cactus friend. He lives in the middle of a desert all by himself, just the way that he likes it. He doesn't like people, he doesn't like talking to other people, and we're going to find out what happens when he starts to realize that that's no way to live your life. Okay? Nobody Hugs a Cactus by Carter Goodrich. Hank lived in a pot. The pot sat in a window. The window looked out at the empty desert. It was hot, dry, peaceful, and quiet, just the way Hank liked it. But every now and then somebody would interrupt Hank's peace and quiet. "Hi, Hank," Rosie the tumbleweed called out. "Isn't it a beautiful day?" Hank ignored her. He just wanted to be left alone. "Okay, so long," said Rosie cheerfully, and she tumbled away. Hank was happy again. Love this picture. Oh, Zen cat. There's Rosie. But just as he was beginning to relax, "Hello," shouted a tortoise. "Private property," yelled Hank. "Keep out." The tortoise was so frightened he hid in his shell. Hank was still yelling at the tortoise when a jackrabbit dashed by. "Hiya, Prickles," she shouted. "My name isn't Prickles," Hank yelled back, "and stay out of my yard." "Tumbleweeds, tortoises, jackrabbits, what's next?" said Hank. A coyote came loping by. "No dogs allowed," Hank yelled. "Well, I'm not a dog," said the coyote, "and you are as prickly on the inside as you are on the outside." I think that means that he's not nice on the inside, and he's also not very fuzzy looking on the outside. Before Hank could yell back at the coyote, a cowboy strode past. "Keep off the grass," shouted Hank. "What grass?" said the cowboy. "Seems to me like somebody needs a hug. Too bad nobody hugs a cat." "Hi," said a lizard. "Who invited you?" said Hank. "And just in case you're wondering, I don't want a hug." "Well, that's good," said the lizard, "because I don't want to give you one." Then he skittered away. An owl landed on the roof. "If you're looking for a hug," said Hank, "well, I guess I could give you one." Seems like Hank is starting to realize something. "Who, me?" said the owl. "You must be joking." And for the first time, Hank began to feel a little lonely. The next morning, Hank was feeling more sad on the inside than prickly. Maybe a hug wouldn't be so bad after all. The wind began to pick up, and an old cup blew by and stuck to Hank's face. His arms were too short to get it off. "Great," said Hank. Poor Hank's got a cup stuck on his face. After a while, Rosie came bouncing by. "I'll get it off you, Hank," he shouted, and she jumped up to knock the cup off Hank's face. Then she tumbled away. I'd like to have a friend like Rosie. Hank didn't have time to thank Rosie. He felt bad about all the other times he had been so rude to her, so he came up with a plan. Hank decided to grow the best flower he could and then give it to Rosie as a thank you gift. It took days, but at last it was ready. He couldn't wait for Rosie to pass by again. Feels like Hank's had a change of heart. Then at last she finally did come bouncing back, and Hank held out the flower. "Look, Rosie," he said, "I grew it just for you." Rosie was so surprised she jumped up and gave Hank a great big hug. It felt so nice Hank didn't want to let go, and as things turned out, he couldn't. Rosie and Hank had become stuck together. But they didn't care. After all, it's better to be stuck in a hug than stuck all alone. All right, guys, I hope you liked this book. I want to talk a little bit about the mistake that Hank made. So, Hank was rude to everybody that passed by because he thought that being alone was the best way to be. He wanted to be alone all the time. He didn't want to be bothered. But then the cowboy comes by, and the cowboy says to him, "Nobody even wants to give a cactus a hug." And I think that that's when Hank starts to realize that he's a little lonely. He doesn't like it that nobody wants to give him a hug. Nobody wants to be around him. So we can tell that he starts to have a change of heart. Right here, he decides that he wants to give the owl a hug. And by the end, we can tell that he's learned that he needs to have friends. Remember, he gets that cup stuck on his face and he can't get it off on his own. Sometimes our friends help us with our problems too when we can't solve them on our own. That's why it's important that everybody has friendship in their lives and they have people around them to help them out when they need it. So he learned that lesson. He kind of learned it the hard way. He made the mistake of being rude to others, but in the end, he ended up happy with Rosie and he had made a friend. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this book as much as I did. I'll see you tomorrow.